Good evening. I'm Tom Pearson, and welcome to the PAC Report. Tonight on the PAC Report, we meet with Markham Council in chambers. Councilor Rea presenting an issue. Let's go inside, see what's going on.
Resident of Unionville, and I'm speaking on behalf of and with the approval of the Unionville Ratepayers Association in support of Councilor Rea's and Councillor Hamilton's motion to allow the public to read the arena reports.
Let's walk the talk and vote for the release of all arena documents. Thank you.
Now, I don't know, residents of Markham, what options we have. Do we have the option to get an auditor general to audit this entire town so that we can understand how they plan to spend our money on this arena that for which none of you have any use? We have an absolute rubbish transit system for which we can't even get people to come so that they can come to the arena. I'm really ashamed of all of you. And quite frankly, Mayor, you should not have been elected. I did not vote for you, and I think you should step down. Thank you.
Which says we have to go in camera unless we're dealing with the freedom of information, which in Markham we do not, the clerk does it. Point 2. I have spoken to the Ontario Privacy Commissioner 3 times in the last 2 days. They have told me that we can, I'm trying to find the right word, we can withdraw the discretionary exemptions. So client's list of privilege, advice and recommendations, in-camera meetings, and economic interests, we can withdraw those from the written representations that you filed when I filed my appeal. So if we voted to release the reports, you could release all the documents that have those exceptions. The ones you cannot release are the ones with a third party, and the third party would be the decision of the Ontario Privacy Commissioner. But you could call them tomorrow, which they are expecting a phone call, and you could say, remove the advice and recommendations, remove the client's list of privilege, all the discretionary exemptions can be removed from your representation. Then we can release those documents. The ones that are not released to the third party, and the Privacy Commission will make the decision on those ones.
Wherever that is, that we actually ask the IPC to deal with this issue as expeditiously as possible, because whatever the decision is of the IPC, we'll adhere to it. It's that simple. So anyways.
They were supposed to have a decision last June, they were supposed to have a decision last September, and then I was told the end of December. It is now February, and I still have no decision, and they still have no date on when they will make the decision.
Well, we can certainly ask them for that request and to deal with it as expeditiously as possible and deal with both outstanding appeals. As I said, we would adhere to whatever the decision is, because then it's gone by legislation, through the proper process, through the proper appeal, and we would abide by that decision. And again, any municipality would be required at that point to do that. And it may be a decision with conditions, because they may decide certain things with conditions, and then we may have to adhere to those conditions. We don't know what they might be until that decision.
Through the chair, why would we spend $57,000 on a second legal opinion 18 months ago when this motion came up before? And why would we not have this presentation back then? Why would we allow the city to spend $57,000 on a second legal opinion?
I think the clerk is welcome to answer that question, but I'm going to answer it. Because I remember, well, I'll let the clerk answer, and then I want to remind Councilor Rea of a particular evening in this council chamber, because I know she was there. So, Madam Clerk, I think as a staff member, it might be difficult for you to answer that. You weren't even here that night, you were on maternity leave. And so I would just say that it was a council decision to begin with. It was not a staff recommendation. And I would say, if you recall, our solicitor was very adamant that we not pass any resolutions to release the documents, very adamant, and gave council sound advice. There were members of the public that were cynical, that we somehow were able to control our solicitor to give us her legal opinion. And so I believe it was Councilor Kanapathy who then suggested and moved, because of the public thinking that somehow we controlled our internal solicitor in terms of the opinions that she gave us, that we go to an outside lawyer and to get an independent opinion. And I think you know what happened after that. We hired one of the best lawyers in the country in relation to information and privacy legislation. So it was a council decision that responded to, I would say, a public reaction that didn't have faith in our solicitor's opinion. And I think it was a way of either validating that opinion or getting another opinion. And we got the opinion that we did.
I was there at that meeting, and the city solicitor, from my memory, and I have a pretty good memory, was, you can release the reports, but I suggest that you do not release the reports. So we wasted $57,000 on a second opinion for a lawyer that we didn't have to spend.
Well, so I think, again, it was in response, and it was a council decision to do that, and it was in response to deal with some of the cynicism and belief that we controlled our solicitor. So I think in retrospect, while I didn't necessarily not have faith in our solicitor, I voted to have that outside opinion, and in retrospect, I'm glad that we did, because as I said, we got one of the best lawyers in the country. Commissioner Trinella Kane was involved in the selection process, and so I would say that they were reported out to council. Regional Councilor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That is the effect of the 2010 decision in the City of Toronto. That the clerk can say to council, you do not have the authority to direct me to disclose what I have determined to be a confidential document that under the AMFIPA rules shall not be disclosed, a mandatory exemption from disclosure. Now the arena is dead, so query whether or not those three councillors should have had access to those documents, because there is no official duty that needs to be undertaken that requires access to the
Process with the decision of the head of the institution. He or she makes a ruling. Again, it's not council to determine, no, you can make this one available or make that one available. They are following the act. There's a process, and I think what staff are recommending is let that process finish, and whatever is the determination, that's what we'll abide to as a municipality.
Well, that's it for this edition of the PAC Report. In the end, it was all much ado about nothing, wasn't it? Just to have a lowly clerk tell the big politicians and all the citizens that they weren't going to release the documents. The information would stay secret. For now, keeping things honest, this is Tom Pearson. I'll see you on the streets. Hey guys, looking for a surefire way to get locked out on Valentine's Day? Buy her one of those giant bears you see on TV, those teddy bears that are life-sized. See how far that gets you. Happy Valentine's Day. Don't forget about the show coming up at Stellar Hall, the Johners Bender, live, March 21st. I'll see you there.